Wouldn't you, like everyone else, want to appear stronger from the outside? For example, like turning an ordinary metal into gold, or drinking the elixir of immortality. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Hello friends. In today's talk, we will discuss the topic of alchemy, which has filtered through the depths of history to reach us today. When we think of alchemy, most of us imagine experiments where metals are turned into gold. In fact, alchemy is not just about material transformation. It is also a science related to the purification process of the soul and consciousness. Does just trying to transform things in the external world truly bring lasting satisfaction? What about true transformation? If it begins not in the eyes of others, but within ourselves? What if the real value is hidden in what we notice when we look at ourselves, rather than what others see? In your life, like everyone else, you surely have aspects you see as worthless or harmful. But if you could transform these aspects like an alchemist, where would you seek your own treasure? Let's step into the magical world of alchemy together. The origins of alchemy trace back to ancient civilizations like Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, and China. The term alchemy is actually derived from the Arabic word alchemia. This word comes from the ancient Egyptian word chem, which refers to the fertile lands of the Nile and means black soil. The first alchemists aimed not only to explore the material world, but also to embark on an inner journey. This had also spread to different geographies over centuries. It showed great development in the Islamic world and was transferred to Europe during the Middle Ages. Islamic thinkers and alchemists inherited this knowledge from Greek, Sanskrit, and Syriac sources and developed it. Over time, they passed it on to the Western world. Alchemy represents not only a physical transformation, but also the inner development of a person and the quest for enlightenment. Therefore, we must know that alchemy is not just a chemistry or material science, but a part of the quest for wisdom. The first alchemists tried to understand the mysteries of creation by imitating nature. For example, cycles such as plants growing and flourishing in the soil, animals surviving in nature, and all beings constantly renewing themselves have also inspired their work. Alchemists aim to transform matter and spirit by observing these natural cycles. Alchemists living in the Middle Ages are mostly known for their efforts to combine elements and turn them into gold. Islamic alchemists like Avicenna and Jabir conducted various experiments to discover the structure of physical substances. These are also the names that laid the foundation for the science of chemistry. Especially Jabir ibn Hayyan's efforts to purify metals and make them valuable were regarded as one of the foremost scientific advancements of the era. But we should not forget that while alchemists were actually transforming metals or minerals, they were also searching for clues on how the human soul could be purified. Although obtaining gold symbolizes wealth and splendor in the outside world, for alchemists it is also a symbol related to discovering a person's inner treasures. So, in fact, alchemy has been used as a metaphor for a person to discover their own essence. Therefore, it is not only a physical, but also a spiritual effort. The transformation of the spirit and consciousness is the esoteric aspect of alchemy. It holds a very important place in Sufism and other mystical teachings, because it invites the individual to transcend the material world and seek inner purification. In the Sufi tradition, this process of inner purification is defined as the disciplining of the self. In all teachings like Kabbalah, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, and Christian mysticism, the purification of the soul and the disciplining of the self are actually involved. The soul becomes purified and elevated by cleansing from one's ego, desires, and worldly passions. Alchemy symbolizes the hero's journey of self-discovery mentioned in my video titled The Hero's Journey. For those who want to watch it, I'll leave the link here. Ibn Arabi defines this inner alchemy as a journey of knowing oneself and the Lord. The concept of annihilation in God, or the self's dissolution in the divine being. In Sufism also parallels the process of inner transformation in alchemy. In this process, the individual first becomes aware of their own faults and deficiencies. Then they strive to transform these faults and ultimately reach a higher level of consciousness. And so, alchemy aims not only at the refinement of metals, but also at the elevation of the human soul to achieve one's true humanity. Rumi, Ghazali, and Ibn Arabi, who are great figures of Sufism, emphasize the inner transformation on the path of shedding one's worldly self and uniting with the eternal. This mystical journey serves the soul's exaltation through divine love. Rumi's relationship with Shams and the stories told in the Masnavi reveal the wisdom and depth of love that inner alchemy bestows upon the human soul. The transformation within a person's inner world carries a much greater significance than the transformation of a substance into gold. Here, gold symbolizes the purification of the soul and consciousness. The processes in alchemy, such as heating with fire, distillation, dissolution, are actually the internal purification and rebirth processes of a person. The spiritual aim is to open oneself to the divine and understand the essence of creation. The concept of transformation in alchemy has even inspired modern psychology. Carl Jung suggested that inner alchemy is actually the journey of recognizing one's own shadows, confronting these shadows, and ultimately becoming whole, completing oneself. He explained individuals' internal transformation processes using the symbolic meanings of alchemy. According to him, this transformation deep within the soul is necessary for a person to reach a higher level of self. The inner journey is the soul's process of recognizing itself, transcending the material world, and ultimately finding its own truth. Now, alchemy teaches us that fundamentally everything is in a state of transformation. This transformation is the evolution of both matter and spirit, because both matter and meaning progress together on this path. In my video titled The Language of Symbolism, I explained the intertwined relationships of matter and meaning in detail. I'm leaving the link here for those who want to watch. Now, alchemy is also considered the direct precursor of chemistry. Alchemists took the first steps toward understanding the basic rules of modern chemistry by studying the properties of various elements and substances. Energy transfers and renewable energy sources that Tesla worked on are in harmony with the principle of everything is a whole in classical alchemy philosophy. Tesla researched ways to obtain the energy existing in the universe without limits and argued that this energy is present everywhere in nature. This energy at the essence of all beings is called prana or life force. Tesla's research on electricity was related to the transformation of different forms of energy. Just like the alchemists spoke of the transformation of energy between matter and spirit. Also, Isaac Newton, in addition to being a physicist and mathematician, was a thinker who showed significant interest in alchemy. He wrote many works on alchemy and especially tried to decipher the meanings of symbols like the philosopher's stone. In other mystical philosophical teachings like alchemy, the harmony between body and soul is important. Alchemists have always argued that physical and spiritual health should be in balance, because for them, a person's inner world and external health should be in harmony with each other. Only in this way can a person experience true transformation and enlightenment. For example, symbols like the elixir of life and the philosopher's stone. They represent the transformation of a person both physically and spiritually. For alchemists, physical health is the foundation of spiritual transformation. At the same time, the expression, a healthy mind in a healthy body, also a lifestyle for the Romans, comes from a Latin poet of the Roman era. I'm sure this saying sounds very familiar to you. Yes, it is a saying by Ataturk. Because Ataturk was also among those who knew and lived by the belief that physical health is directly related to mental capacity and spiritual balance. If we look at what he has done and achieved, I think we can say he is one of the greatest alchemists of all time. He was an extraordinary person who brought profound transformation to both individuals and society. He resurrected a fallen empire from its ashes and founded the Republic of Turkey. He elevated an entire society to a modern civilization level despite all obstacles. The greatest leader of all time. Alchemy, in both its literal and esoteric meanings, is a bridge between a person's physical and spiritual worlds. It is a representation of the parallel development of the physical and spiritual worlds. This dual meaning makes alchemy not just a branch of science, but also a profound spiritual and philosophical teaching. On the other hand, I want to look at transformation from a different perspective. So, how can we apply alchemy, all this knowledge, the real purpose of alchemy, to our lives? When we say transformation, most of us dream of big changes, dramatic outcomes, right? What if I told you that the first step of this journey is actually accepting yourself as you are? Alchemists would first seek out the impure aspects of matter in the transformation process, accept it as it is, and then begin their work. We can also apply this method in our own lives. Instead of being ashamed of our deficiencies and flaws, we can embrace them. When we accept ourselves as we are, we lay the strongest foundation for transformation. Because true transformation only begins when we recognize our flaws and face them instead of denying them. That is why, in my opinion, alchemy is a path of wisdom that brings deep inner acceptance and helps us be at peace with ourselves. In our daily lives, there are times when we feel stuck in repeating cycles. The same habits, the same patterns of thought, the same beliefs. Alchemy is also an invitation to break these cycles and be reborn. Each of us has a philosopher's stone in our life. This is a dream or a goal within us that inspires, liberates, but at the same time frightens us. Perhaps the first question we should ask ourselves is this: which habits drag me down, and which thoughts keep me in my old self? Just as alchemists purify metals, we too must learn to let go of our unnecessary burdens in our inner journey. Creating a small space for change each day can be a part of inner alchemy. Rebuilding ourselves starts by tearing down the old and establishing a new structure. Flow is a very important concept in alchemy. Just like water, alchemists take inspiration from nature's flow. They work by letting themselves go with the flow of water without forcing it. We all sometimes strive to control the events in our lives. We want everything to happen the way we want and when we want it. However, alchemy reminds us that surrender and patience are also part of transformation. Just as we allow the soil and time to do their work in the process of a seed transforming into a flower, we need to develop trust and patience in the flow of life. Seeing challenges as a transformative process that matures us is accepting the natural rhythm of life. Alchemists sought gold above all else. But gold is a symbol of inner enlightenment as well as material wealth. Today, many of us still search for happiness outside of ourselves, elsewhere. Success, peace, strength, but alchemy tells us that the real treasure is within. What a person needs to discover in their own soul is the gold that may seem small to others, but is very valuable to them. To achieve success or peace, we must first recognize the treasure within us. That's why self-discovery is actually the greatest wealth. Once we decide to find the treasure within us, everything in our life becomes a tool for us, and every experience becomes a clue. As a result, alchemy, with all its profound meanings, promises us both to look beyond the material world and to purify our soul to reach our essence. Because the real gold is hidden in our own soul.